I'm all you're perfect in disguise. I never seen another girl where they make me feel the way that you make me do. It be like say when I'm around you, girl, you just do me voodoo. You put me for that kind cruise, another girl no fit put me to. I never put me to. I'm a little child, I'm in love with the way that you move, and nobody be like energy. Captivating, captivating, yeah. You do me things, do me well, no. Look into my eyes, this feeling that I'm feeling. Me have you know what I do me. Mystical, not regular. The kind of girl I want to make my wife. She have you know, baby, see, hold me down now. See, never let go. Cause your body give me energy. Sweet past Menali. Yeah. Sweet past Menali. Nothing now. I'm all you're perfect in disguise. I never seen another girl where they make me feel the way that you make me do. It be like say when I'm around you, girl, you just do me voodoo. You put me for that kind cruise, another girl no fit put me to. I never put me to. I'm a little child, I'm in love with the way that you move, and nobody be like energy. Captivating, yeah. You do me things, do me well, no. She have to give me green light when I'm a feeling blue. She have to make me feel right. Oh, after this night, she got no say but my sweet eye. Oh, blue eyes, you too fine. If you kill a man, God took his time just to make you a mine. We did down all night, it they bust my mind. Ting along, ting along, like it the way you dey shake gongo. Ting along, ting along, now you do make I dey knock your door. Ting along, love you when you turn up your nana. Come me, daddy, oh nana. I'm all you're perfect in disguise. I never seen another girl where they make me feel the way that you make me do. It be like say when I'm around you, girl, you just do me voodoo. You put me for that kind cruise, another girl no fit put me to. I never put me to. I'm a little child, I'm in love with the way that you move, and nobody be like energy. Captivating, yeah. You do me things, do me well, no. Cheza mara moja, cheza mara mbili, cheza mara moja, cheza mara mbili. I'm Jambo, yote karibu sana, karibu Afrika, tunawapenda sana, tena wakaribisha, hakuna matata, Afrika yote, hakuna matata, tunawapenda sana, Kenya yote nawapenda, Tanzania nawapenda, Uganda nawapenda, sote East Africa. I'm Jambo, wamama wote tunapa heshima, mainchi zote tunapa heshima, na wabibi na wabwana na watoto na wazee, East Africa moja. I'm Jambo, wageni wetu tunawakaribisha, tunapenda kucheza dansi, tunakula chakula mzuri, tunakaribisha watu yote Afrika, tunawapenda. I'm Jambo, I'm Jambo. wageni wetu tunawakaribisha, wageni wetu tunawakaribisha. Amjambo, 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 amjambo. Wageni wetu tunawakaribisha, wageni wetu tunawakaribisha. Amjambo, amjambo, amjambo.
Sweet Mwagala H2 baby Mwagala Era kusubiza Obutajuka You the light in darkness Wetala Emulisiza Munzikiza Tabaza yange Every time she get turn around Asagala, asagala Ebimuliko byonna kebe ntumbwe Asagala, asagala Nakubisa na nyo baby, baby Asagala, asagala Closer to me baby, baby Asagala, asagala Kari jensaba Tukole timetable ya February weekend night a day Hey Monday, Tuesday Siweza kukola kona Wednesday half day Thursday Romanya Weekend the time we say Yeah Thursday Romanya Weekend the time we say Yeah Every time she get turn around Asagala, asagala Every muliko byonna kebe ntumbwe Asagala, asagala Nakubisa na nyo baby, baby Asagala, asagala Closer to me baby, baby Asagala, asagala Every time she get turn around Every muliko byonna kebe ntumbwe Nakubisa na nyo baby, baby Closer to me baby, baby Every time she did turn around Asagala, asagala Every muliko byonna kebe ntumbwe Asagala, asagala Nakubisa na nyo baby, baby Asagala, asagala Closer to me baby, baby Asagala, asagala
You see the sun, you know they shine so bright. When you know day, when you know day. You see the stars, them don't lose their lights. When you know day, when you know day. Are, are, do, do, do. Are, do, do, do. Are, do, do, do. Are, do. From my face, from morning to evening, you know easy, you know they easy. As you know they are, I'm waiting to do it myself. I don't know it, I don't just know it. Suddenly, suddenly, everything clear to me. Waiting love really mean if you're not here with me. I don't feel sleep, I don't feel think. Should I like this sitting baby? My liver they cut, I can't take this no more. You see the sun, you know they shine so bright. When you know day, when you know day. You see the stars, them don't lose their lights. When you know day, when you know day. Why you they talk when I they talk is something when we can't be met? I know. We wake up again, I still argument. This thing they pain, you know. I they see the love where you they give me, the things still remain, cause I know. He they had to talk and but if you leave, my own don't finish, I know. Suddenly, suddenly, everything clear to me. Waiting love really mean
presented by Bwana Semisto, the CEO. He will be presenting on what Kenya Trained Remedy Agency says, what services they offer to businesses, and that is why we are inviting the business community who are even exhibiting here for them to get this information from the source. I know many of you have not heard of this agency, and it is important to get these services. Information is key. We have been talking of information asymmetry to SMEs. So the first thing you need to develop is your capacity to acquire information. It's a semester. Karibu. Well, he is coming to present. I think we could agree that half to 10 minutes should be enough for us to present. And for this session, we will provide for the audience, particularly the businesses, to pose questions for anything that may not be clear.
Maybe just, I don't know whether the screen can. I can't look at this one, so maybe let me just give me a few minutes for this other one to, yeah, just a few minutes so that we can start. Coordinator, thank you very much for this opportunity. As the slides are coming on, my name is Samuel Chemiso. I'm the acting executive director for Kenya Trade Remedies Agency. Now, we'll try to look at the slides in terms of who we are, what is Kenya Trade Remedies Agency, what is it that we do, and then how do we do our work, and then we'll also try to look at the, yeah, thank you, I think the slides are on, so that's what we're saying, who we are, what we do, what are trade remedies. Then we look at the requirements for application of trade remedies, and then now we look at our achievements and then our role. So because today we are saying we want to look at what we do to promote trade and entrepreneurship in this country. So what does KETRA do in that area? Next. We're saying KETRA is a creation of the Kenya Trade Remedies Act 2017, and Section 3 of that act provides for the establishment of trade remedies. We are a state corporation within the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development. Next. Yeah, what do we do? Now, Section 5 of that act provides what we do. And we implement what we call trade remedies within the rules of the World Trade Organization. And maybe just what we mean by World Trade Organization is that Kenya is a member of the World Trade Organization. And the World Trade Organization is an international organization which deals with the international rules of trade. So for all countries in the world which are trading globally, there are about 165 countries who are members of the World Trade Organization. And that global body of trade has rules which prescribe how trade should be traded globally or in the whole world. And 98% of the world trade takes place within the World Trade Organization. So you can see it's only 2% of world trade which does not take place within the WTO, which can show you that it is a very small percentage of trade which does not have or which does not occur within the World Trade Organization. So what we do is that this body, the World Trade Organization, there are 3 treaties which prescribe how trade should be handled. And then those treaties are what we call the Agreement on Anti-Dumping, the Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures, and then the Agreement on Safeguards. So what the WTO is that when you want to use these international instruments, you must domesticate in your domestic law. So once you domesticate in your domestic law, you show your intention to use those international instruments. And that's why with the Kenya Trade Remedies Agency, now the Trade Remedies Act 2017 domesticates those 3 instruments, or the international instruments which are provided for within the World Trade Organization. And also the World Trade Organization, you will see that it provides for free trade. That's economic liberalization. So once you liberalize your economy, naturally it happens that competition is going to be very stiff. And sometimes many countries don't like competition, because you can compete, and of course in the process of competition you can lose out, especially when the competition becomes so severe. And particularly for industries which are still young and they are not able to compete on an international footing. So to encourage governments now to undertake economic liberalization, the World Trade Organization provides for those 3 instruments for you to protect yourself in the event that when you open your economy, you are injured, or your industries are injured as a result of undertaking economic liberalization. Because once you undertake economic liberalization, you now accept the principle of free trade. And free trade, once there is free trade, now you enjoy what we call economies of scale. You produce on a bigger scale because you will be serving the global economy. You produce in a big way. So if you have an industry which is producing in a small way and cannot be able to survive that global competition, these international trade rules provide that you can use them to defend yourself temporarily for your industries to adjust and be able to face the competition. So that is why we have the Trade Remedies Act, which provides for that. And then this, we say it supplements the Big Four agenda of the government in terms of now the industrialization agenda. Because if you are serious in terms of your industrialization agenda, then that's why you need those trade defense instruments. And that's why they're called trade defense or trade remedies tools, because you use them to protect yourself. And they are temporary in nature. It seems that you use it to defend yourself. Once the problem is sorted out, you exit. So that's why now it provides for their use in an elaborate legal framework so that they are not abused. You see, sometimes when you have the law, the way you use the law also determines how it is used. So that's why this act, which Parliament passed in 2017, provides the elaborate procedures on how these trade instruments can be used in accordance with the way the World Trade Organization specifies in their treaties that all 164 members that are members of the World Trade Organization use them. Next. Now, that's what I was trying to explain, that what are trade remedies. So we have plenty that say trade defense. Normally when I explain, because I want people to understand, is that like a country, you have your military. So in the kama jeshi ya biashara ama jeshi ya industry, you see there are three arms of it. You have what we call anti-dumping measures, you have what we call countervailing measures, and then you have what we call safeguard measures. Now, each one arm of these instruments addresses a specific issue. Now, let's look at anti-dumping measure. That addresses the problem of dumping. Because an industry can suffer because of dumping. Let me use this one as an example, just to explain what dumping is. Let's say this is a sanitizer. If this sanitizer is manufactured here in Nanyuki, and this sanitizer is also imported from Tanzania, maybe in Nanyuki here, it may be selling at around 8 shillings. If you find it in Dar es Salaam, where it is produced, it's selling for 10 shillings. So you see, in the normal international trading, when you move a product from Dar es Salaam all the way up to Laikibia or Nanyuki here, there are those normal costs that you know, distribution costs, taxes, profit margins, and all those. When you factor them, at least if it is in Dar es Salaam, it's costing 10 bob. By the time it reaches here, it should be either 15 or 20 shillings. But if you find a product here in Laikibia selling for 8 shillings, and in Dar es Salaam where it is produced, it's selling for it's selling for 10, and here it's selling for 8. That's now when we say dumping has occurred. It means you are selling a product here in Nanyuki less than where it is coming from. And that is one aspect that in terms of what we call economic warfare, or in terms of industrialization warfare, if you are fighting another partner, you want to eliminate that industry, that's how you do it. You dump the product that is selling below the production price from where it's coming from. So in the process now, you eliminate the other competitor, and then after you have eliminated the competitor, you can now raise your product cost. You can raise your price to whatever you want, because the other producer is no longer there. But the rules of world trade does not allow that. It says, okay, if you have an industry producing similar product, like product, and you have opened up to economic liberalization, you can defend yourself. So in terms of dumping, that is what anti-dumping treaty does. And then we have another aspect also of this. Let's say the same product is from Dar es Salaam, and in Dar es Salaam it's selling for 10 shillings. Here in Nanyuki it's selling for 8. So it's the same principle. One aspect is it could be as a result of government subsidy. So when that government subsidies, Tanzanian government subsidizes the production of this product, it confers a certain benefit on this product, such that it can be able to reduce its production cost and sell cheaply here in Kenya. So in the process that this product which has been subsidized causes material injury to another producer here in Kenya of same product, the government of Kenya is allowed to counteract this subsidy from the government of Tanzania by imposing what we call countervailing duty. So the importance of the countervailing duty is to raise the price of the product to a level where the two producers can be able to compete. So in the event of where there's a government subsidy, the rules provide that you can counter with a countervailing measure to intervene. And then the third arm, of which is normally referred to as safeguards, is now a case where this like product, we have a producer of this like product in Kenya, that's sanitizer. But then imports come in large quantities in an unforeseen way and in an unpredictable manner, such that this producer cannot be able to sell its product in the market that it has always been selling, because of huge quantities which have come in an unpredictable way and in such a manner that it causes market disruption. So in these cases where you use the safeguards, nobody has done a mistake. It is a normal course of business. The product is okay. The producers, the product has come in because it has been imported in such huge quantities. But then now the local producer cannot be able to service its normal market. It is because of the disruption. So in such a situation now, you are allowed to impose what we call safeguard measure. Now, what happens in the event of a safeguard measure is that if that industry has a problem and it cannot be able to sell, it cannot be able to service, you know, what normal happens is they will start laying off people, the profit margin start declining, and then also the operation capacity, they start producing less and less. So that's now what we call material injury because of the import surges. So that injury now that is caused by these import surges, we need to resolve it. And what we call now, we impose what we call safeguard measure. The safeguard measure could be now temporary importation, a temporary stoppage of importation. You can say, hey, I'm being hurt. I am not breathing. Can we temporarily stop the imports and then work out with the industry on something that can regulate the market in a way that the local producer can be able to survive and imports can be able to come in. So you can go into what we call quantitative restriction in terms of imports. And when you go into that, it will now mean that, okay, the local producer will be able to produce and sell. International trade will be able to continue because you will allow imports to come in, but coming in a restricted manner and a structured manner, such that the local producer will be able to survive and imports will also be able to come in, but come in such a way that everybody survives. The international trade takes place, the local producer also, or local producers of this product are able to continue with that kind of production. So that's why we normally say you compare with the three arms of also the military. You have the Jikafu, you have the Navy, you have the Air Force. So whichever, if your territory is invaded in such a way, you have those kind of three defense measures to use. So that is why we are looking at this, because we are serious in terms of industrialization agenda. Now, any country which is not serious in terms of an industrialization agenda may not use these instruments, because in a short while I'll explain to you why sometimes it may not be useful. I think I've explained what so how do we operate? The first thing is for us, we need to get complaint from the industry. So whichever producer has been affected, let's say by dumping, we need to get that complaint that, okay, I've been injured. The problem is this product. The product is coming from this source, and the prices are like this. So what we do now is, once we get that complaint from the industry, we have to we initiate what we call an investigation to establish the existence of dumping. So once we establish the existence of dumping, now we can proceed to the next stage where we investigate what we call the margin of dumping. By how much has that dumping happened? And once we establish that margin of dumping, we now recommend what we call a remedial measure, which is now called an anti-dumping duty. An anti-dumping duty now will raise the price of that imported product to the level where it can be able to compete with the other domestic product. So when it comes to same subsidy, if it is also a subsidy from a government, once you complain that you have been injured by a certain product, you also specify the nature of injury. Is it a subsidy? Is it dumping? Or is it an issue of import surge? So if it is complaints on subsidy, we are also, KETRA now will establish the existence. Is that product truly subsidized? And if we establish that it is subsidized, we establish the margin of subsidy, how much of that subsidy exists in this product. and then we recommend a remedy measure once we have established in terms of an duty, which is called a countervailing duty. So the countervailing duty is supposed to impose on that product which has been subsidized, and to the level that can raise the price of that product to a level where it can be able to compete with the other domestic product. And then now in the issue of safeguards, when we talk of safeguards, what we do is, if there are import charges, what I've said, the imports must be sudden, increased in huge quantities, and the normal producer cannot support. So what if it's an import charge? We have to confirm that there is that import charge, and by how much. So that now what we do is we can go into temporary stoppage of importation. And then once we go to that, now we provide for a remedy measure which may be quantitative restriction on imports, so that we allow imports to come in a quota. So the exporters who have been exporting to us similar product, and then we do a pro rata. How much are we going to allow from each of the producers? Because the quota has to be uniform, and it has also to be fair to the people who have been trading with us, so that we give each person a quota to be able to service the market, and the other person can also be able to continue. And one aspect that we say about this complaint is that 25% of the industry must be able to support that complaint. Why do we say 25% of the industry? With 25% of the industry must support that complaint, so that it is not a one-man show or a one-man complaint. So that now it is an industry problem. It is not a one-person's problem. So that if the issue is now a one-person problem, we could establish whether if it is an efficiency issue or is something that is related to, not related to these three issues, we could recommend for assistance to other areas where that industry could be able to get some kind of assistance. So it's very elaborate. That's why you're saying 25%. And that 25% threshold is not very difficult to get. To get. For instance, we have two glass manufacturers in Kenya. So the two of them make 100%. And so if we get a complaint from one industry, that's already 50% of the industry complaining. So you can understand the nature. If there are maybe 20 producers of the same product, so 25% of that 20 producers means, and they have to support that kind of complaint, because it has to be an industry-wide problem, not a one manufacturer problem. Next, please. Yes, I think about how we operate, I think that one I have explained in detail. So what are the requirements for application of trade remedies? One, we have said the domestic legislation, which I had indicated earlier, that once you have the domestic law, it shows that you want to use those international instruments that are provided for within the WTO framework. And then the other thing is that you must have a competent investigating authority. Why should you have that competent investigating authority? It's because international law requires that these are the instruments which are being given to you. And these instruments, they are subjected to international legal dispute. So the issue now is not why you have used the instruments, because they are available for you. They have been given for you as an international by the World Trade Organization. The key problem normally that comes when it goes to a court of law or dispute resolution is the how. How have you used these instruments? So, and that is why now it is very critical that there is a competent authority which has to do the investigations in accordance with the well laid out structure within the multilateral framework, and also do the notification, because when you are investigating a country, it will mean you'll also have to move out of your territory into the territory of another state. So it involves a lot of things. If you are moving from Kenya to Tanzania, you'll have to involve a lot of things. Diplomatic relations, you have to notify the WTO. You also have to notify that country that you are investigating them, and you are investigating them for what reason. So that's why those are some of the elaborative processes that we have to go. And normally the investigation can also take a while. Maybe you initiate from now, maybe it can even take up to 12 months before you start enforcing, because you have to make your case. So that now, if from here you move to a court of law, you have your evidence that will support you. Because these issues, resolved within the World Trade Organization appeal mechanism. So you can imagine going to an international court and you don't have the evidence. So if you don't have the evidence, then your case will just collapse even before you start. And that's why it's quite an elaborate process of going through. And then now compliance with the substantive procedures of the WTO is what just I've explained. Next. In terms of operationalizing, so we got the act in 2017. That's now we are in the process of operationalization. So we're seeing now we have got a board which is oversighting. We have got some staff from the Ministry of Industry. We have been seconded to support the board in operationalizing the agency. We are now developing our strategic plan which will guide our operations. We also have an office space where we are starting our operations, which are in Parklands at the Kenya Institute of Business Training. Next. We are also saying we have undertaken also some basic studies as our baseline to see which sectors have been affected by non-application of trade remedies. So here we can see that we already have the sugar sector, we have paper and pulp industry, we have glass industry, we have iron and steel, and recently we also received complaints from cable manufacturers and also footwear and diapers, and also the poultry industry. We've also received some complaints on issues to do with poultry area. So you see, and the complaints are coming in. In fact, even yesterday when we had some discussion here, somebody told me there's also another problem with the dairy industry, so which is coming up. So you see, quite a number of issues are coming up. So we're saying also in terms of development of our service charter, how we'll handle you now, how will we work with you? That's what our service charter will determine, how we work with our clients. That one we've already worked on, and we have the board has adopted it. We also have the field testing of the manuals that will be used for investigation. We've gone to the field, we've shared with some few industries to get a feel of how they feel. And from this kind of field testing, that's what we have noted that is a lot of work for us in terms of capacity building the industry to understand what these trade defense instruments are and how to be used. It's a lot of work there because many of them do not understand what they all mean. Next. Now, what's our role in terms of supporting investment and industrialization? Because that's why we are here in Laikipia, because we are working towards supporting entrepreneurship, innovation, and investment. So what's the role of KETRA in this area? So we're saying our role here in this area is protection from unfair international trade practices. Let me distinguish here, because when you talk of unfair trade practices, we have so many forms of unfair trade practices, and that's why you find there are a lot of agencies which are involved. Like we have colleagues here from ACA, they will come and say what they do in terms of the area. We have KIPI, they are here, they will come and talk also, because they handle a lot of unfair trade practices. We also, we don't have KRA here, but there are some aspects of unfair trade practices which they also handle. So because of the universe, the huge universe of unfair trade practices, that's why you find each agency is specialized in a certain area. And because of the magnitude of work, no one agency can be able to handle all of them. And that's why you see now young agencies like this one now are coming. For Kenya Trade Remedies, we are focused on these three key areas. Other agencies will come and focus key trade areas. Maybe what I can just distinguish here is that issues of competition within our country, within our territory of Kenya, those are within the domain of the competition authority. Issues of competition, monopolies, and the prices. Those are now unfair trade practices, but within the territory of Kenya, those ones go to the competition authority because they deal within the jurisdiction of Kenya. Now, these others which have an international bearing, unfair international trade practices in the area of dumping, in the area of government subsidies, and in the area of safeguards, those ones now come to us because they are international in nature. So they go beyond our borders. So that's where we come in, because now we'll be handling the international aspects of the unfair trade practices. The aspects of intellectual property and the others, our colleagues here who will be able to dwell in a very big way on those kind of areas. And then, so that's one is with protection against the dumping. That's our key role. And we're saying now eliminate dumping, and say the practice of dumping is done by private sector. The elimination of subsidies. subsidies are given by governments. So you will see now the effect here is we have to defend the industry from private sector practices, which is dumping. We have also to defend from the actions of other governments, which support the industries through subsidies. And we have said that when you give a subsidy, you confer an advantage to your industry, which an industry in another country may not benefit from it, because there are some countries which don't give subsidies. So if a government gives subsidy to their industry to produce an export, and then in the export market it causes injury to another industry, then the World Trade Organization allows that you can take recourse into this kind of treaty. And then in the normal operation of business, that's where we're saying, okay, normal international trade is taking place, and then there are so many, the huge imports coming in terms of import charges, where nobody has done a mistake, but it is in the normal course of business. So in the normal course of business, because we are in an economic, in a liberal world, and in an area where we have adopted open economic systems, we resort now to safeguards so that we can control the amount of imports and regulate in terms of the quantities. And you see, some of these instruments now, they go beyond the WTO rules of free trade. And that's why we have been told that in terms of implementation, you must have domestic law, so that it's very clear how you use them and the process you use them, because others also will question. So, and then now you follow the steps that the international instruments have already elaborated in it. So, and then we have the last one is capacity building, teaching our people how to use the instruments and use them responsibly, so that because they are also subject to international disputes, we are not subjected in a manner that we'll start losing in terms of our cases. And I can tell you that this is an area now that is, in terms of global trade, this is where countries have a lot of disputes. Because in terms of industrial protection, tariffs, or like tariffs, now they have gone down because of a lot of negotiations which have taken place from 1947 up to now. Tariffs have always continued to come down. That's why you see even our applicable tariffs, if you look at our CET here, the highest is maybe 35 or maybe 35% for certain industries. So the rest are 0, 5, 10, fine. So you find that if you have an industry, it may not be able to protect that kind of industry. So the recourse now you have is in these other kind of instruments. But then the recourse now is subject also to law. And that's why now you have this kind of instruments. And for our information is that in Africa, it's only South Africa and Egypt which have these two institutions, the legal framework and the institutional framework, which is functional. And the rest of Africa, they don't have. It's only Morocco and Tunisia, they have these instruments, but they don't have, they have the law, but they don't have the functional institution. And you can ask why, but the reason is that this process is very expensive, highly technical, and for you to have that functional institution, you must have the resources and you must have the experts. And that is where now the problem comes in, because you can see in terms of the industrialization agenda, of South Africa, you can see how big, how huge it is. Look at Egypt, how huge the industrialization agenda is. And that's why they put a lot of money into this, making sure that the industry survive and they're able to compete on a global footing. So the other African countries are still thinking in terms of how to approach these issues of trade remedies. Even within the African Continental Free Trade Area, when we were negotiating the African Continental Free Trade Area, we participated in this, and we also provided for these instruments. So we will be covering these instruments in the entirety, both regional and also global. So we are in the stage of building, so we hope we'll be able to catch up with our colleagues. And if you can see the current trade war between the United States and China, you'll find that even in these instruments, the President of the United States is the one who imposes them. And you'll find that in the US, you normally have the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Trade, and the Foreign Secretary. They're working hand in hand to advance US economic interests. And these are some of the key instruments that they use. And they've been using them for so many years and for a very long time. So thank you very much. Because today is just a question of trying to explain what we do, how we do it, and why we are there for you, and how we do promote investment. Because if you see now, if we have these investments, we have to protect them, because investments, they're like an investment is like a baby. You have to see them grow from the day you give back to a child. You have to see them grow and mature and be able to be able to survive on their own. That's the nature of industry also. That we, as soon as when we have industries, we need to give them that kind of protection. We see them thrive and we see them survive on their own and be able to compete at an international level on an equal footing. And that's why when we talk of international instruments now, normally we say when we talk of economic liberalization, yes, you are allowed to, we're encouraged to do it, and then we also have instruments that we can use to protect ourselves in the event that we suffer or get injured because of these kind of issues. So thank you so much for your attention. That's my presentation. Maybe if there are some few questions, I can take them, or maybe the coordinator will tell us whether at this session we take them or maybe at a later point. Thank you very much, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you for that elaborate presentation. Do you have any question? Just 2-3 questions maximum. You have one, another one? Another question? Okay.
Thank you, CEO, for that interesting presentation. It's a very important subject. Having listened to you and looking at our current situation, I'd like you to just highlight what you are doing to address the issues of affecting the textile and leather industry, where we have a lot of mitumba, second-hand materials, which are coming into the country and are really affecting that particular industry. I think you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So how do you address that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question, and I can say it's also very interesting because I've been involved in trying to find also a solution for that mitumba and the used shoes industry. One biggest problem that we have is that within the international trade rules, mitumba and used shoes, those are waste. According to international rules, they're waste. So we are dealing with textile waste and footwear. That is, in terms of it, is waste. They don't have an international code, because when you are going to investigate, let's say you are initiating against mitumba, there is no international industry that you are going to investigate. In other words, what we are becoming is we are taking other people's waste and use and consuming. So there is no remedy for that. What we wanted is now to go through the sanitary way and the other technical regulations. And you remember those technical regulations that we developed with KEPS, and also the sanitary and phytosanitary regulations that we developed, that we have to be compliant with those sanitary regulations. And we also have another problem here, another domestic problem, the issues of poverty and the issue of the people who can they afford new clothes. Because what normally happens in terms of economic policy is that the government should also balance the needs of the poor and the needs of the rich, so that now we are able to produce the textile and apparel that can be the poor can afford, and also be able to balance in terms of this kind of trading. And you see also now in terms of the footwear, to address the issue of footwear, those sanitation issues, the fumigation, because what we wanted is if you enforce those kind of standards, it will push the prices of those used or second-hand clothing to a level where they become uncompetitive. So it becomes now an enforcement issue, because that is the direction we should go. and strike that kind of balance, and then also see how do we facilitate the industry in terms of incentives to be able to produce products that can be able to drive Mitumba out of the business. So it's a delicate balance, because now here you find the importers of the used clothing and other products is big business, and then now the interest of the industry. So in terms of balancing now, but in terms of using these three instruments, it is not quite easy, because now if you are going to investigate a used shirt, which is this used shirt? Because which is the industry producing used shirt? Somebody has worn his shirt, is over, is thrown away. Somebody collects it, and then you see it's supposed to end up in the dump site or end up in the recycling industry. But then somebody is bringing it here as a product for you to buy and use, and that is one of the product challenges that we have. And that's now in terms of application of the rules. Technically, it is not possible. That's why we came up with rules now which can affect that area in terms of sanitary, in terms of how to balance. And then what we need to look at is the other industry. How do we now help our industries to produce products which can be able to compete with Mitumba? Because the biggest thing is the market forces will drive them out of business. Or alternatively, again, if we have to be very bold the way Rwanda went, you see, when it came to imposition of those kind of duties, they imposed them and they did not blink. What happened is that we, at some point, we had to blink, but we had to blink for certain reasons. Because you see what the Americans did, or maybe those huge Americans who complained, the textile and something industry. What they have done is they have coded, the Americans have coded their industry in such a way that they have an international code, such that if they take you for a dispute, they say what we have done here in Kenya is that we are affecting American, they call apparel and recycling industry. So you see now, recycling industry is a big industry now, because, and that is also part of the industry now. It has a code, an industrial code, that they say now that industry will be injured. So in a way, technically, they have also beat us, because initially when we used to classify it as a textile waste, because you cannot, who has forced you to take waste? It's textile waste. It's footwear waste. So if you take it, it's your business. Ooh, it's your choice. Because it's textile waste, it's footwear waste. But now, they have brought in now the technical aspect of it, recycling industry. So recycling industry is a big business. And the people dealing with it are also recycling. So they have given a technical name, so that even if you now go for the dispute process, saying, yes, my recycling, apparel and recycling industry is affected. And that industry has a code within the law, within the international law, it has found a code. So it's, you see, it has been evolving. Initially, previously, when we were trying to defend ourselves that it's a waste, now they have moved to the next level, that yes, these are textile waste. But for them now, for them to get that kind of protection, they have moved into now the green sector. We're saying now recycling industry. So that now, if you have to put also interventions there, you put also interventions knowing that this is, you are dealing with a recycling industry, which now somebody technically has also beaten you in a way. But we are not going to test by that. That's the way we need to have that kind of balance, because the market forces are the biggest drivers. They will be able to drive them out of business and be able to. Imagine also the way we had also gone, the recommendation that have been made. I know you are all in public sector, you understand the import taxes that we said be put on footwear per dollar. That's you saying per piece. If you have to import maybe a pair of used clothing, maybe you pay $10 per shoe. So that would have already driven out that business sector out. But you see the way they also industry fought it to remove that kind of thing. But those are tariffs now which can solve that problem. Because if you put footwear $10, that's already 1,000 shillings. By the time it comes into here, it will no longer be a product that is economical for the kind of targeted consumer. And that's what other countries do, because it's a form of waste. So the best way to fight it is also through tariffs, and you can put punitive tariffs. And even here, for us, for our tariffs levels, our binding tariffs in terms of the World Trade Organization, we still have some policy space to use tariffs, because our industrial tariffs have not been bound at the WTO. We have only bound about 1.5% of our tariff lines. and we bound at an average of 54%. So if you apply something, and those the ones that we bound are in the sectors where we are not able to produce, like pharmaceuticals. You see, the pharmaceutical sector, we are applying 0% duty on pharmaceuticals. Industrial machinery is 0. But those are the sectors we bound at. We bound at 54%. So even if you still increase, if you have an industry producing medicine and you want to protect, you can still raise tariffs on medicine to about 54%, and nobody will punish you. But now, because we don't have them, the medicine is imported at 0. But you see now the footwear that we are recommending, used footwear that we are recommending, that $10 per pair of shoe be put on it. And because of now that balance between our domestic interests and so in terms of balancing our domestic policy, that's what we really need to see, how we can work together with the industry and also see how we can take care of our poor. Because taking care of the poor is also still part of government policy, because they have to make sure that those interests now for the citizens and the industry, they have to be balanced in a manner that is giving everybody a fair chance to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Maybe another quick one. If those here would want to conduct GETRA, how will they do it?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I think in the slide we didn't put our address, but there's a prompt here that we. Okay, we are located at Kenya Institute of Business Training, and we have a telephone number and an postal address that we can give. So maybe I'll adjust the slides so that we can give you our contact addresses and where you can find us.
Thank you. We can appreciate the CEO. So thank you, CEO. Allow me to invite Mosea to make their presentation. The floor is yours.
You now concur, you would have missed a lot if you remain at the stand. Information is key. So let's listen to ourselves. Mosea Karibu. This is again an authority that is closer to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Kamenyi. I'm a regional manager in charge of Laikipia and Meru County, Micro and Small Enterprise Authority. I'm here representing our CEO, who is in another engagement. So I'm here to give you what initiatives that we are doing as Micro and Small Enterprise Authority, and areas of collaboration. So Micro and Small Enterprise Authority is a state corporation established under Micro and Small Enterprises Act of 2012. Our mandate is to promote, develop, and regulate micro and small enterprises. So the micro and small enterprises are basically the ones you see there who are exhibiting there. According to the Act, a micro enterprise is any person doing a business or undertaking an activity that's generating income. At the end of the year, the turnovers has not gone beyond 500,000. And that person also is employing not more than 10 people. That is a micro enterprise. A small enterprise is a person who is employing more than 10 people, but it does not go beyond 50. And this person could be having sales turnover annual ranging from over 500,000 to 5 million. So if you, in the exhibitors, even the people we have here, quite a big chunk of it is from our sector. So our mandate is to promote, develop, and regulate those micro and small enterprises. So what are we doing? Key projects, programs, activities, and the strategic initiatives that we are undertaking as micro and small enterprises. We are refurbishing, utilizing of consulting industrial development centers. Consulting industrial development centers, they are incubation centers. We call them common user facilities that we have done in all counties. Like here in Laikipia, we have a consulting industrial development center in Sipili. We have recently republished it so that, and we have occupied MSCs there. We also have a work site, Juakari work site in Nyahururu. We have given them a lathe machine so that they can be able to develop themselves. We have also Marmanet, we also have a work site which is there. We have also given them a lathe machine, and of course we have other machines that we identify on a need basis that we give MSCs. The other issue is construction of cold storages. We can just list them, then I can go one by one. Then we have Kenya Youth and Employment Opportunity a project that is KEOP. We do capacity building for MSCs. We also facilitate access to market for MSCs. We have also been doing strategic partnerships. I will go into details about how we have done. We are also registering MSCs, micro and small enterprises, across the country. And then we have an MSC fund that is in the operational stage, that also, once it's operationalized, is going to help the MSCs. So maybe I can go into the details. As I said, that we are refurbishing constituent industrial centers nationwide. We have done 152 of them, the CNDCs, 152. The main issue is we focus on to mobilize, register, and train equipment used in those facilities. We equip the facilities, and we allow the MSCs to use the equipment. On the construction of cold storages, this is under the Presidential Directive. The authority received 300 million under the Presidential Directive to construct 3 cold storage facilities in Nyandarua, Meru, and Kisii. In Nyandarua, we are constructing actually a cold storage for potatoes. In Meru, we are also doing for potatoes. In Kisii, we are doing for bananas. The cold storage facility are meant to assist the potato farmers and banana farmers so that they can guard themselves from post-harvest losses. So these facilities are targeted to benefit over 5,000 farmers. So that's what we have done. They are at the completion stage, and we expect that these common use facilities are going to be of a great use to Kenyans. So Kenya Youth Employment and Opportunity Project, that is KEOP. Well, this is under the Ministry of Youth, but as Musea, we are the ones who implementing that program. So we implement many youth normally apply for grants of 40,000, and they are vetted. We are talking about youth above 18 years, from 18 years to 29 years. So they apply, they are vetted, and they get grants to enable them start their businesses, either start or even expand their businesses. So capacity building for MSCs. The authority has entered into agreement with Equity Bank, Group Foundation, and Stanbic Bank Foundation to provide affordable credit facilities, financial literacy training, and capacity building for micro and small enterprises. So we have this existing partnership whereby we train our MSCs together with Equity Bank and Stanbic Bank, and of course we also enable them and we negotiate for them so that they can access credit. On facilitation of MSCs to access markets, in the year 2021, a total of 1,097 MSCs benefiting from the market linkage initiatives. These are, for example, the second National Media Group Mini Expo held on 18th and 20th March 2021 at KICC. We also partnered Vika SME Expo that was held on 9th to 30th January 2021, and Kericho Expo, which was held on 17th to 19th June. And of course, this other one that we're having is also an initiative to enable MSCs access market. How do we do that? We enable them access market through creating awareness of the exhibitions, online marketing, planning exhibitions, events, and with the conjunction with the county government, provision of venues, those spaces. As we are talking, on 2nd of December to 12th of December, we are taking our MSCs to East African Trade Fair, which will be held in Mwanza, Tanzania. Okay, in this county particularly, because I'm responsible for this county, we are taking 8 MSCs. We are allocated 10 MSCs for every county. We were able to get 8 from this county who are going to attend the exhibition and link themselves to the international market. Legislation of MSCs. The authority operationalized the office of the registrar during the financial year 2020-2021. In operation the office, the authority involved a digital system with the support of UNDP. So UNDP is a key strategic partner that is helping us. That supported us in developing that system, and we have already started registering MSCs. To date, we have done 6,192 data capture, and we have successfully completed registering 146 associations. What do we do? When we are registering these associations, we get a lot of data from the MSCs. The data that we get is what the nature of your business, monthly yearly turnover. All those, that data will help us in the future, because we are looking ahead to understand that once we start advancing credit or even other initiatives to support MSCs, at the click of a button, we can know, for example, in Laikipia, we have these associations. These kind of associations are in this sector. We have agriculture, we have others who are traders, micro traders, in all those sectors. We are register them in sector wise, so that in that sector we can be able to identify key challenges in that sector and how we can be able to support them. So there's I talked about Micro and Small Enterprises Fund. This is a fund that was developed, and we did stakeholders consultations, and currently it is at towards the completion stage. Actually, it was in the National Treasury. It was returned back to us for some few amendments here and there. And once it is completed, the micro and small enterprises are going to benefit from the fund. So, the regional offices. We have 21 operational regional offices across the 47 counties. So basically, that's where in Nanyuki, for example, we have our office is behind county assembly. That's where we are. That's where our offices are. So thanks a lot. That's what I had from the micro and small enterprises.
Be there so that you can observe those who are posting Take how many? How many have questions? Those three, and we start here. Take the mic next to you.
Good morning. My name is David Dungu. I work with an organization called Light for the World, where our mandate is to empower people with disability, and also a representative of United Disabled Parts of Kenya. So my question is, for the trade fair, you said you're taking 8 from Laikipia.
Yes.
So to promote inclusion, have you considered persons with disability? Thank you.
Okay. Let me answer that one.
Take the three.
Okay.
Very much. My name is Moraguri, Patrick Moraguri, and my question is to do with capacity building of MSCs. I'm wondering whether you have any provisions for private management consultants with experience to exercise some of their knowledge with the MSCs, including MSMEs. Whether there is any provision in MSEA to either maybe even to have a database of specialist consultants, and with interest in seeing the MSCs build their capacity and become more sustainable, more profitable, and to grow.
Next.
Thank you. My name is Dominic Mulinge from Makueni County. My concern is that the county government have devolved ministries maybe for trade. Others are calling it for trade and cooperatives, ICT, or such names. So when I read Africa and try to also walk in our stance, I'm trying to look at how SMEs are represented in the entire country. That is, how many counties got the opportunity and also got interested to also share with us what they are doing. Because I'm sure next week there's a conference in Makueni for devolution. I'm expecting maybe there will be a better representation. Are we saying that the link between the national government and the county government, relevant departments, are not well coordinating? Thank you.
Before even a response to that, I would want that even as we pose questions, we have positive minds. And ask that which is not clear to you, rather than casting doubts. I don't think we have a challenge, the way we work with between national and the county government. And that's why some of the representation, even in this county, are from far. All our sagas are here. So we have no challenge on that. We are very well coordinated.
And maybe to add on, because we clear that one, as MCA, we requested all the 47 counties to have at least 2 exhibitors come and exhibit here. And in selecting the exhibitors, we're doing the consultation with county governments. So we are working as one. And my colleague, you can attest, as even if you ask the question, you came from Kitui, Sidio, and you are selected by our county officer in Kitui, and the selection, how it was done, the county government is aware. So we are working as a team. Okay. On the persons with disability, I can expound very much, very well about the 21st East African Fair. And which also points with to the last question that has been asked. What we are doing, Micro and Small Enterprise Authority is facilitating MSCs to move from Kenya to Tanzania exhibitions. It is a shared responsibility. So Micro and Small Enterprise Authority wanna prevent exhibition. I mean exhibits. Carriage, we are carrying across the country for all exhibitors, whatever they are going to exhibit. Then we requested the county governments, all the 47 counties, they have our letter from our CEO, requesting them to find some kind of a cost sharing with MSCs so that they can sponsor them. Like this county has already agreed with a few MSCs on the cost sharing, which of course I don't go into those details because the county also has autonomy to agree on what they are going to share. And the names that were presented to us, I am sure they are covering across the board. But to answer much, because for that particular group, which is purely on of peoples with disability, because a group of the peoples with disability, understand, as much as maybe you could have missed in this one, is that not that we have forgotten you, because that's why we want to contact you, come here so that you can showcase what you are doing. And of course, as micro and small enterprises, we value all gender, people with disability. We value everybody, but we could not be able to incorporate everybody. Remember, in the groups that we are taking, you will find one or two a micro and small, a disabled person, and others are not disabled. So we incorporate disabled people who are not disabled, women, all across the board. So this other question is about capacity building. If I got it clearly, it is micro and small enterprise partnering with people with special experience on MSC so that they can be able to train. I think that's what the question is. Real? Yes. That one we would embrace as much as possible. That's why I talked about partnerships that we have done with the Equity, we have done with the Stanbic Foundation. When did you do this? Because we know these people are serving in the same sector that we are serving. These people are bankers. The MSCs go to borrow money from them. Some of the MSCs don't have, do not have collateral. Some of the MSCs maybe are lacking one or two things, but they still need to access credit so they can grow themselves. So those are kind of partnerships. So I think that is open. You can come forward, and we see how much you can be able to partner, because the window is not closed. But I'm just named about those two partnerships. We can partner with many people. Thank you very much.
My brother, I just want to reinforce how well we are coordinated. Be an optimist, not a pessimist. We are here because we mean well for the SMEs, and that's why I was insisting, let's be here to hear what services we can render. From here, we will go to those 3 farms, and the media should follow us, because this is an occasion also to highlight what they do. I propose that our parastatals, you identify one person to join us so that we don't overwhelm them with the numbers. So about 10 to 15, we will leave here, go see them. We will be shown by the county government here who those farms are, just around Nanyuki, and we come back. George, it's your time.
Thank you very much, Kirima. My name is George Makateto. I'm a director of industries, in charge of engineering and construction industries. My presentation, I'll do it in twofold. I'll ask my colleague to come later. But I want to give you a snapshot of what we do. Normally in the ministry, we are at policy level, and then parastatals assist us in implementation. The reason why I'm presenting is from what the SMEs have exhibited, so it's good to have some information. I'll start from In my department, as I said, is engineering and construction. Okay, sorry for that. It's engineering and construction. In construction industries, we are looking at issues of agricultural machinery. Some you saw there. First, we are doing mapping for the purpose of promoting local production. And we're also looking at construction industries. Construction industries are very large. You've seen in Kenya, one of the areas which has been growing very fast is in construction. Construction industries, they have machinery and the material which are being used. And briefly, lastly is furniture. I think yesterday furniture was talked about. We need to promote furniture in our country. A lot of furniture is being imported. I think yesterday the governor alluded to how much billions we're importing furniture. And actually, there are many SMEs doing furniture, even here in Nanyuki town. But they don't get access to our offices, either government or private sector. Like even this good furniture which is in front of us here, this is local. And you see they are well done. But these are just a few accessing our offices. But you saw the amount of money we use in importing furniture, mainly from China, and they also don't last. Another area of interest, actually that's why we decided to present, is we promote, we do promotion in the area of motor vehicle. Right now what we are doing, we are trying to finalize the national automotive policy, which has been given cabinet approval, and we hope by the end of the year it will be passed by parliament. Actually on Friday we have a parliamentary session where we seek their concurrence on assisting us in passing the legislation. But in that space we have legal notice number 84. And especially it's good for us to know as SMEs that there's a legal notice 84. Mainly it focuses on assembly or motor vehicle. In legal notice 84, there are some parts of a motor vehicle. Any motor vehicle which is assembled locally, those parts must be sourced locally. And some of the institutions, private institutions that provide these parts are SMEs. So we have SMEs providing, for example, manufacturing, exhaust systems, wire harnesses, okay, and so on and so forth. Springs, those ones can be obtained locally. So if a vehicle is being assembled, normally a kit is brought to the country, minus those parts. Otherwise, the person importing those kits must pay full duty. So another area, and because of this legal notice 84, and because of the fact that we are moving towards national automotive policy being passed fully, so far there's been a lot of movement. In fact, part of the national automotive policy is being implemented. As we speak now, all the local assemblers of motor vehicles, and there are mainly three. We have Isuzu, mainly does Isuzu. We have Kenya Vehicle Manufacturing is based in Thika. It is an old one. They used to do Land Rover, and the utilization capacity is low, but they're also coming up. And you have the automotive vehicle assembler in Mombasa, which assembles many models of vehicles. As we speak now, if you look at the roads, all those police vehicles you see, if you see a police vehicle, a vehicle for administration police, or GSU, they look very new. All these vehicles are as a result of the initiatives which we did. So all those vehicles are being assembled locally. They are under lease. And all the three main assemblers, each of them are given a chance to assemble those vehicles. So you have Toyota Land Cruisers are there, Mahindra, okay, Mitsubishi, Isuzu, D-Max, you'll find them in that group. And they look very new. And they are under lease, they are not being bought by the police. So if they have a problem, they are taken away and a new one is given out. And remember, these vehicles are assembled locally. It means there are some SMEs who are doing springs, who are doing the seats, upholstery, they are locally. So as you see those vehicles, they are already SMEs gaining. And we are hoping more SMEs can gain. I'm seeing in Laikipia, there is an environment for such, especially for BJ50 in Nyahururu. There are several SMEs involved in that. We are hoping when we work together with some of our parastatals, we are going to create another environment for SMEs which can provide the parts. So anytime in future you see BJ50, it's just not one part, several players. Another area we've really promoted is, although sometimes there's positive or negative, is motorcycles. Last year, we also did legal notice 112, and the legal notice 112. In phase 1, 7 parts were to be sourced locally. Then after phase 1, which was 6 months, phase 2, additional 7 parts were to be sourced locally. Those were 14. A motorcycle was about 300 parts, and even as we talk, we hear there are motorcycles moving here. Anytime now, going forward, if you see a motorcycle, 14 parts are sourced locally. And those parts, we started implementing in January this year. As we speak now, an additional 3,200 people have been employed directly. But if you look at that sector, about 1.5 million people are employed. Okay? So that's motorcycle. So if in this county, and there is one of the assemblers in this county for motorcycle, it's called Captain. They do motorcycle. So we are aware. You can see we have already touched Laikipia. And they are also doing some of the parts like helmets. Now, in the automotive side, we were challenged this year to come up with an affordable vehicle. The reason why we want to create this sector, we want our country, you find for heavy commercial vehicles, we do assemble locally. And actually we don't allow the others. We assemble locally heavy commercial vehicles. But for passenger vehicles, we have a challenge. And my previous colleagues talked of Mutumba plots. We also have the vehicles, Mutumba vehicles. Now, the issue is, it's always good to buy new. But the reason why people buy second-hand, because of affordability. A new car, if you put all the taxes and is locally assembled, might be quite expensive for an ordinary Kenyan. So that's why there's an issue of affordable vehicle. We've pegged an affordable vehicle at about $10,000, around 1 million shillings. So we have a range of 800 to 1.2 million. And we challenged the industry beginning of the year to assemble a vehicle locally that's between 800,000 and 1.2 million or 1.3 million. The purpose of that is to allow Kenyans to decide to start buying new vehicles. And then in the process, if you buy new vehicles, there is more Kenyans employed by that compare if you buy a second-hand vehicle. Second-hand vehicle, you employ fewer people, but actually employing people in the origin of that vehicle, where the vehicle originates from. And as we speak already, there are 2 firms which have come forward. One, the vehicle is even in an assembly. We have Proton Saga, which is about 1.2 million. And there's another version, which is 1.3 million, fully loaded. In other words, just a normal vehicle, fully loaded, power windows, and everything is there. Already it's there in the country, 1.3. And of course, we have Mobius. They are still high at 1.7, but we are hoping to work with them so that they bring. The purpose of this is to encourage Kenyans to buy locally assembled or locally manufactured. The way BJ50 is, there are so many people employed by that tuk-tuk. Now, if that tuk-tuk we can work together, we'll find there are so many people will be employed, and there are people from Nyahururu, if they see this tuk-tuk, they'll be willing to protect it, compared to if you get a tuk-tuk from outside the country. Another area which we are going to now is, for example, is you're aware, the past few weeks, the issue of COP26, the issue of environmental, climate change and environmental conservation. The vehicles we have still, we are, in terms of development, we are a bit behind, is internal combustion vehicles. Internal combustion vehicles, either they use petrol or diesel, and they use oil for lubrication. These are petroleum products. They pollute the environment, they are carcinogenic, there are some parts of the vehicle which are carcinogenic. So, in order to also be in that space, we are also promoting e-mobility, where we are promoting local assembly of electric vehicles. There's already some work being done. There are people doing conversions, especially on tourist van and matatus, where they come with electric motors and remove the engine and the transmission system and replace with electric motors. They're already in the country. There are people actually promoting two-wheeler electric motorcycles. Okay, they're already there in Nairobi. There are several players. There are even taxis, like I think some of you have seen Nopea. They're fully electric, but we want them to be locally manufactured. Those ones are important. We've had a lot of interest. We have like Hyundai. They have two makes of vehicle which they have presented to our ministry. One is called Kona, which is fully electric. They're hoping they'll also assemble here. So we'll also be working in that space where we'll be able to participate in environmental conservation. So we're also hoping to get versions of BJ50 which are fully electric. So I'm challenging, I think, the colleague who is doing the electric there. Now, given that what I've said about automotive, therefore it means with the parastatals, we should be able to support BJ50 to actually maybe bring down the costs and also to be more marketable locally. And we are hoping with that kind of support, they'll be able to export in the region and beyond. Because in terms of development in the automotive sector, Kenya is far much ahead. So we'll be working with parastatals, and we are hoping that I'm sure NMC will come to present, he'll talk about it. So we'll work with NMC. People like, already we are working with KEBS in this sector, and we're hoping in other areas, we'll work with our colleagues like from Kirdi. Now, what are we proposing in our proposed policy? Of course, after that we'll develop, policy is just on the top, we'll develop regulation for each of the sectors. Remember, we're also talking on electric. We should be able to provide incentives. First, incubation, like BJ50 is a case of incubation. So how can we support BJ50 to actually conform? Standards are not there to discourage. Standards are just there to be met. And actually, if BJ50 can actually acquire many of these standards, then they'll be ready to compete with anyone. We should be able to work with the players in this sector so that they attain those standards, the way we worked with other sectors, especially with KEBS. So standards are there, they might be high, but you can work with you slowly so that you attain, so that you now, when you attain the standards, you can access any market. Of course, we are moving from, we hope to move from SKD to CKD. Okay? CKD is completely knocked down kit. And then beyond that is manufacturing. We want to discourage DKD and SKD. We want to do purely CKD or full manufacturing. We also, in that policy, we're also looking at collaboration mechanism. I think before me, there was the issue of collaboration. Okay? So we should improve the collaboration mechanism between government, the industry, the academia, and the SMEs. Okay? With that, we'll be able to do much more. I think A good case of that is when I think because of knowledge, Kirdi was doing the welding machine. When Kirdi was doing welding machine, they used SMEs, they trained them, they put them on assembly line, and each of the SMEs was doing a part. Eventually a welding machine came up. That's collaboration. So we are hoping also to do that. Then of course there is the issue of market access, leasing, and adoption of technology. So there are some aspects of technology we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just take it and use it. And also we are promoting parts manufacturer. As I told you that this environment, if you look at a company like Toyota, because all of us know Toyota. Toyota actually depends on SMEs. So you will not go to Toyota and find cars there. You will just find parts. So when they want to manufacture, when they have an order of 1,000 cars, they call all their SMEs, and the SMEs deliver 1,000 parts at the shop floor, not in the store. And what gets out is the Toyota. So the power of the SME is important. And if you look at Toyota, it supports their SMEs to reach the standards. So that's where we want us to be. And then in terms of R&D, we are happy we have Kirdi in the house. We need to assist in terms of R&D for this sector, so that we really support the local innovators. And then the policy also talks of preferences in terms of procurement. Right now, if the leasing for police, you will not be able to get the tender if you are not a local manufacturer. Okay, so you can see we are also using procurement to support our players. So that was to do with the automotive, because you could see there was a lot of that in the exhibition. So we are hoping after this we should be able to work with Laikipia County to promote some of the automotive products they have locally. Another area we are promoting is electronics, and nowadays in any area, even automotive, there's a lot of electronics. So this is still at the early stages, but as we speak, from 2013 we've been trying to promote local assembly, maybe at that level of electronics. As we speak now, I think 3, and they have a touch of the ministry. 3 such organizations are based at Deda and Kemathi. Previously there was Positivo, there's Fourth Wave, and there's a third one, I've forgotten the name. And they use the SMT, surface mounted technology, and they are there in place. Another farm which we've been working with is Gearbox, is based in industrial area. They're also in this place, and they're also using SME technology. Last year, during COVID and part of this year, through help of the Manufacturing Africa, which is under the British government, we're able to do analysis of what we can manufacture locally. We did all a profile, and we're able to pick 2 areas that we started engaging with potential investors. That is fridges and TV. So we had about 11 potential investors. They went to 5 serious ones, and already 1 we've already recommended for approval. They are going to do locally manufactured TVs using solar. So we are moving to that space. So this microprocessor technology can be used in many aspects: fridges, TV, laptops, even vehicles have this technology, especially nowadays with the ECU in vehicles. So it can be used in many areas: ovens, many aspects of our life. So that's another area. So as we do this, SMEs do this, and they can also go into that area. You can see we have a local person who is able to do cables, okay, charging cables. We have local people and they are youth. I think during COVID you could see there are some two, I think they were brothers who were able to do a temperature gun with very little resources. So this space is already developing, and with time we should be able to support it. Another area which can be of interest is what we do is we have what is called industrial spares. When you're importing any machine which is not available locally, the government will support you, especially if you're importing for industrial use. The government will support you and you'll be able to import it at zero duty. This one should be able to support you to actually bring out the overhead cost so that you can compete with other players who are outside the country, especially like China. So we chair a committee which is composed of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KEPSA, KEBS, National Treasury, and KRA. KRA is the secretariat. So anytime we chair and we agree that person A should import, KRA will go and implement. You'll be able to import without a problem. So if you are in an area that you want to do manufacturing and you want to import machines which are not locally available, we're also there. We're also looking at the issue of iron and steel. Yesterday there was a talk of iron and steel in the country. We want with the sector, the stakeholders to develop a policy. Later it can become a bill. Originally this was a Vision 2030 project. A national numerical machining complex had been tasked earlier to come up with this. As we speak now, there's an investor in Samburu at the coast who was already constructing the same, an integrated steel mill, and more can come in. So we are hoping that we'll work with the sector to come with a policy. Normally without a policy in an area, investors are not very keen. Lastly, sorry, I was in a hurry. Lastly, not before that, we also promote industrial engineering. So if you are a firm or you're an SME who is doing some of this work, we will want to assist you with the soft skills on how to efficiently produce your machine using efficient technologies and techniques, and also to ensure you do it in the shortest time possible. We are also promoting that. Lastly, we also, because of what has been happening before, we also promoting the use of scrap metal. Before, it has been haphazard. There has been pilferage of our infrastructure, like when you have new roads, people going away with the material, the posts. If there are solar panels, they go with them. If you are unlucky, you wake up, you don't have a gate, people have gone with them. So we are trying to promote so that there are genuine people in this trade, we facilitate them. And then we weed out people who are not genuine, so that we can also use scrap metal for economic growth. Other countries like China, this is a big time industry, so also we should take advantage of that. Now, if you link iron and steel and scrap metal, the day we'll start producing locally steel, then you'll have a lot of scrap metal in addition to what already we have locally. So this is what we promote. So in the process in 2015, we started a journey early. Initially, scrap metal was being controlled by mainly the police, but you see, this is a technical area, so it was moved to a ministry. In 2015, we had an act which actually sets a scrap metal council, which now is supposed to regulate this area. This council is headed by a secretariat. The head of secretariat is here. So, in conclusion, I'll allow the head of secretariat to say a few words before the question time. Engineer Simio, come in.
Yeah, thank you, Director Makateto, for giving me this opportunity to actually share some information on Scrap Metal Council. My name is Engineer Simiyu Wabwile, and I'm the head of Secretariat for the Scrap Metal Council. Now, as Director has just alluded earlier on about the Scrap Metal Council and its inception, I will not go into that. I will talk about what is scrap metal, because that is the key subject area, and then the governance structures of the council. Then I will talk about the mandate of the council, and I think that will be all. So first of all, to begin with, I want us to understand what is scrap metal. Many times we talk about naenda kwa scrap. Okay, the name portrays the material. Actually, scrap metal is a raw material. It's a material. The name portrays it as a rather not very important commodity. But from the definition, from the Act 2015, it says any old metal, second-hand metal, broken metal, defaced or old metal goods, including machinery, plant, whether wholly or partially manufactured, and any metal which is property of government or privately owned, whether ferrous, non-ferrous, or ferroalloyed, but does not include gold, silver, or any other metals of the platinoid groups. From that definition, you can see what Director has just mentioned, that your gate falls among this definition. So it was very important that any business dealings in this sector are regulated, so that private and public property is not traded in without their permission. So what are the governance structures or structure of the council? Actually, the council is composed of 10 members, and majorly these members are stakeholders in scrap metal dealing. And the membership is, we have the PS for the State Department in charge of matters of industrialization, PS in charge of matters transport, PS Kenya Revenue Authority, sorry. We have Kenya Association, KISMA, Kenya Institution of Scrap Metal Dealers. Then we have the cottage industry. Then we have the National Police. National Police are actually a stakeholder because, as Director had earlier alluded, they were the initial people, together with NEMA, who are doing the licensing of scrap. They are important because when it comes to enforcement, we partner with them in enforcing our mandate or scrap metal. Now, this membership, like I've said, was constituted taking into consideration all the stakeholders, because we wanted to make sure that in implementing the mandate, all the interests and interest groups and the general public is taken care of. So like you have seen, all people who use scrap or who are affected by scrap metal dealing constitute the members of the council. The membership is for 3 years, renewable, that is subject to performance, and the council is assisted by a secretariat, which is provided by the State Department for Industrialization. Because of the age, the secretariat has few members. I have 5 staff, and so far the operationalization process has begun. It began sometimes last year, and quite some work has been done. We have developed the zero draft of the regulations. We are in the process of doing a strategic plan. In fact, like I had mentioned, the council is in its second term because the first term of the council elapsed sometimes this year, but now we have a new council in place and we have quite some business. Okay, fine. Let me just go back to scrap metal. Why is this scrap metal important? Like I had mentioned earlier, many times we talk of naenda kwa scrap, but scrap metal is a very important raw material. Right now in the world all over, we are having challenges with raw material and mining of virgin metal is very expensive. Some countries like our country Kenya, we are not very well endowed in minerals. So if we prudently use scrap metal, that provides raw material for some of the scarce resources that we do not have in this country. So one of the reasons why we regulated scrap metal trade is to make sure that we are availing the required raw materials for our industries. In fact, one of the key responsibilities or objectives of our regulation is to ensure that we are availing raw materials for our industries. That is why in our act, we are having scrap metal not allowed to be sent outside this country. We don't allow export of scrap metal. We have restricted the export of scrap metal because we want to avail those raw materials into this country for use locally. And whenever we have, sorry, sure. Okay. Now, why do we regulate the trade in scrap metal? We want to protect the public and private property from vandalism, just as it had been mentioned. We also want to protect the public health as per the Basel Convention and Stockholm Convention. Basel Convention actually deals with transboundary movement of hazardous wastes. We do not want to allow hazardous wastes to come into our country, or we as a country do not want to take hazardous wastes to other countries. And then when I talk about Stockholm Convention, I'm talking about persistent organic pollutants. Persistent organic pollutants are pollutants that are generated as a result of processing of scrap metal. They are persistent because they are passed over generations to other generations in like crops. For example, lead poisoning. You've heard of lead poisoning in our country somewhere in Mombasa. That is a persistent organic pollutant. This is a toxic material. And then we are, like I've said, we are promoting investments in scrap metal by restricting the taking out, the export. So anytime we have allowed export, then we only allow by category or by name if it is cast iron, if it is copper, but we do not wholesome allow the export of scrap metal. So generally, that is how we regulate, and we do that through licensing. We license scrap metal dealers in this country. Right now, it is illegal for anybody to trade in scrap metal without a license. This license is provided by the Scrap Metal Council upon application, and you can do that through our website. It's online. This facility is available online. You just log on to the website, and then you will be guided and you'll be able to apply for a license. Our licensing fees is also provided on the website through some schedules there. So once you have logged onto the website, you'll be able to get Scrap Metal Council and proceed with the application. Now, for more information, we are available on a telephone number, if you can take it down, 011-4862-46. And then our email is scrapmetalcouncil @gmail.com, and our Twitter handle is at scrapmetalc_ke. I think because of the 1 minute I had, but you have disorganized me because I had so much information to give. Thank you.
Yes, unless you observe time, I will disorganize you even more. Because we need to provide the time for all ourselves. Thank you, George and Simiu. Indeed, there are a lot more information, but we need to share out on the remaining time. We are oozing with information. So today we will give you a snapshot. And now we will give you how to assess much more. Okay? So that we provide the time for all of us. Remember, we were to be here up to the weekend, but because of many engagements, we had to shorten that time. So when you come, the rest of us colleagues, let us compact our presentation to not more than 15 minutes. And the rest you want to outflow to late in the evening and tomorrow. And now that he has mentioned a few things, I think I can take a few 2 minutes and conclude with the rest of the other state departments so that they don't come here, so that we allow only the parastatals now to move on. George and Simiu have been presenting on Engineering and Construction Directorate and the associated sectors. We have Chemical and Mineral Industries Directorate, where I come from, and is home to the many issues that are the subject discussion of COP26, climate change and associated phenomena caused by use of chemicals, use of fuels. So we need to manage that. So in the directorate, we work with the stakeholders to ensure that there is sound chemical management by industry, from when chemicals are produced to how they are packaged, how they are used, until they are disposed. We also work with other stakeholders to monitor the trafficking of hazardous chemical substances, some of which come through the use of such material, like containers which end up in scrap metal. So when some of our SMEs that we call juakaris are using even scrap, they need to get to know the quality of that scrap. You could be poisoning ourselves. You take a scrap metal and beat it to make a kalai for cooking, and yet the container could be laced with some hazardous chemicals. So that is why there is need to see who traffics scrap metal and for what reason. We are also involved in promoting manufacture of chemical and related products, including pharmaceuticals, herbal medicine. We have seen quite a number of products, herbal in nature. We are the directorate that is supporting that, together with Hangoro Industries Directorate. So we have Hangoro Industries Directorate as well. Director Machali, are you here? Which again deals with the promoting of Anglo-related activities. We have SMME Directorate, which is again the directorate that anchors many issues related to micro and small enterprises, including the policy. We have private sector development and business environment, where Director Ondua is. When you talk of ease of doing business and unlocking the potentials, support the structures, my colleague Director Ondua is in charge of that. And we have a colleague who deals with integrating it at the regional level. When we talk of CET, common external tariffs, where you want to export your things, there is Roy Nyangena, who owns that directorate that is dealing with the research and the manufacturing policy. So in the ministry, we have 8 directorates. We don't want to bog you down on what we do. There is a site for the ministry. In our banners, you'll find a site. If you get into the website of the ministry, you see our manufacturers, the policies we have done, what they are meant for. And the simple message behind all this is to support industrialization, trade, and enterprise development. That's what the ministry does. We have decided we will give you more time to our parastatals. Hands-on. The ministry are more about the policy. But these are the people who are hands-on in terms of implementing, including even incubating you. So at the session where we are now, we should deliver and see 3 enterprises in Nanyuki County. Madam, you are ready? We will go see them. We did propose that we don't go a big number. When we come back, we will meet that people have already taken lunch, so that when we come back here, we concentrate and we move on, starting from the PS trained, Simon Sedago. PS trained will be presenting on how trend is supporting industry, not only to operate within, but outside our borders. Then we will move on to Kirindi. Kirindi will be giving you information on many things they do, how they can assist you in R&D. Once you become innovative, they will help you in many things, including incubating you. Then our numerical machining complex. They can help you make components that you would otherwise import and very expensively. We have Equity Bank for your financial needs, and the rest will follow in that order. So I propose we take a break so that we visit those enterprises that are waiting. Our sagas, get the CEOs ideally when you are there, and in the absence, those who are representing the CEOs, we can go, 1 person from each, so that we are not more than 15. We will be brief there. We don't intend to take more than an hour. Then we come back. Agreed? Asante sana.
Hi, my name is Sophie Wanjiko Shiko Onyango. I am a designer. My brand is Tribal Trends by Shiko Onyango. I make everything from scratch and everything is handmade. I use locally available materials and also outsource beads from other countries. And most of my materials are recycled. I use bone, recycled beads, brass, leather, wood, and any other material that can be used and can last longer. So most my beads, like bones, I get them from Kibera, so I promote Kenya. And also wood, I make them from handcrafts, Kenya. So everything that you see here, most of the material used are locally available. I was inspired by our culture, the way African used to dress, kitambo. So I started from there. Now I'm trying to bring back culture and in a way that people can relate. Like kitambo, people used to wear those big necklaces from calabash. They used to make with shells, but because I can't only use shell, I try as much as possible to use other materials and to try to bring back the cultural trend through jewelry.
Made in Kenya, authentically